What is up guys, welcome to the Apache Spark tutorial series 2024 for beginners. I'm AJ and today we're gonna talk about Spark architecture, about how Spark executes the jobs and what is the workflow of it, right? So first component of the Spark architecture, like whatever components is there, I have mentioned it all in this diagram. So first one is this driver program. So driver program is like, to understand this one, just think this driver program as your main control unit of your Spark application, right? Whenever you write a Spark application or whenever you execute your Spark application, this driver program have your, like, this is a place where your main method will run, right? And second thing what will happen is it will create the Spark context. As I mentioned it here, it will create the Spark context, right? This Spark context is like very important because this is the entry to the Spark. Without Spark context you cannot do anything. You cannot like access the cluster, or you cannot use any kind of libraries, right? So this is very important. And in this diagram, this driver programs sits on the top because it is the entry, because it is where the code execution starts, right? So this driver program also communicates with the cluster manager to request the resources, right, and coordinates the execution of the task on the cluster nodes. So these are the cluster nodes, right? And to communicate to the worker nodes, it uses cluster manager. And to access or to interact with the cluster manager, it use this Spark context as a mediator, right? Directly it cannot access. So using Spark context only, it can do this kind of communication, right? Okay, so to just give you an overview, I'll try to give you one example here. So suppose, so think of that you have a Spark code, you have a Spark code, and now you need to submit it, right? So what you did is you have submitted your code here, means you have submitted your code in the cluster. So what happens is, like, first thing is driver program will launched, right? Second thing what will happen is your main method and the logic of your code, this driver program will consist everything, like it will capture your code and your main method here, right? So the third thing what is happen will, like, this driver program will create the Spark context here, right? It will create the Spark context that will establish a connection to the Spark cluster, right? So this Spark context is like very essential, as it allows the driver to interact with the cluster and manage the RDDs. This RDD I already talked earlier, as this RDD is very helpful feature, like on the time of like it prevents data loss, as you have this RDD lineage with which this RDD try to create the data from the scratch, and whenever this kind of error of this data loss will appear, this RDD will recover everything, right? So this is the approach in the Spark. As we mentioned, as we already talked in my earlier videos, what Hadoop have, like Hadoop used to copy like lot of copies into the nodes, right? So if one copy will get destroyed or some kind of, like, it will get lost, you this Hadoop will try to recover the data using other copies, right? So this is what Hadoop follows. But to like to achieve the same kind of goal, like not to lose any data, what Spark do is Spark uses this RDD approach, right? So in Spark we have, so this is Hadoop, and sorry, so this is Hadoop and this is Spark. Both are for not to prevent data loss. Okay, yeah. So okay, so now what we did is, like, we were talking about this example. You have submitted your Spark core, driver program got started, and the Spark context is being created. It have establishes the connection between the cluster manager and the and the cluster. Sorry, it has establishes the connection between this driver program and the cluster. Right now, whatever transformation you have added, whatever like whatever actions also you have added, it will define a lineage, right? So as you remember, this RDD access RDD lineage, right? Without this RDD lineage, it cannot recover the data. Now, what is RDD lineage? So just think of this example what I talked earlier. You have a dish and a recipe, right? Suppose you have cooked something and this dish is the end result, but somehow this dish got lost, right? But with the recipe you can cook it back again, right? If so the same logic applies here also. So this lineage is a recipe where all the steps are there to recreate the data or the output, and RDD is the final result, right? So this is how the Spark recovers the data or prevents the data to be lost, correct? So now the next step of this example will be DAG creation. So here we end up in creating RDD, right? So first, this Spark code you have ran, then driver program will get launched, then it will create Spark context, then it will create a connection between this driver program and the cluster, and then it will create the RDDs if some kind of transformation you have added there, right? And then after, it will create a DAG, right? So Spark builds this DAG. So what is DAG? DAG is this DAG, this directed acyclic graph, right? So this DAG is just a stages based on the transformation you have defined. Whatever transformation you have defined in your Spark code. So okay, so try to okay, so it will create the DAG. It will create like transformation, whatever you have added here, or actions. It will create the DAG or the stages, how your code is being like have to be executed or need to be performed, right? And then after creating this kind of DAG, the next part or the next step will be the job execution. Now the main role of the driver programs will come, like it breaks down the DAG into stages, right? So whatever DAG has been created here, now it will go and it will be break down into stages. This is S1, S2, S3. So these are stages. So this what driver program will do, right? So driver program will break this this DAG into different stages, right? And then it submits this task to the cluster manager, and then it will submit this task to the cluster manager, right? Okay, right? So this what it's happened, and now the cluster manager will distribute the task to the worker nodes here, right? So this is how, like, this is how the code executes, right? So this is the overall workflow of the Spark architecture, right? So to sum up this architecture, so first point for the driver program, like here I have mentioned also, yeah, so here, so driver program manages the application, create the Spark context, and oversees the execution, right? Second thing is Spark context. It will connect to the cluster manager and coordinates the resources. Third is cluster manager. It allocates the resources across the cluster, right? Fourth is executors. Executors were like, what is executors? These executors, worker nodes. These are the executors, like inside this worker node, right? So this will execute your data, right? And now the last is task. Task is what executed, like this task will execute the computation defined by the driver, like whatever task here is been sent by the driver here, like as I mentioned, these this DAG will be break down into stages, and these stages will be treated as a task that is being created by the driver program, and then it will be sent to the cluster manager, and then from here it will get distributed to the worker nodes, right? And this and after that it will get executed, like executed in this executors, right? So this is how, and these are the tasks. This, suppose this is S1, S2, and here is S3. Okay, just to add on, I'll add this S4 also. So here is your S4, right? So this is how your task is been distributed. So that's it for today's video on the Spark architecture and job execution workflow, right? So I hope you find this video very helpful and gain a better understanding like how Spark operates. If you have any questions or need any further clarification, just feel free to leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, just please give a thumbs up, or and don't forget to subscribe the channel, because I'm gonna add more videos to the series, like about the Spark and all, right? So keep watching and see you in the next video. Thank you.